Nature is the door to happiness.
The things that you see, the experiences that you have while kayaking stand out.
Not only is it people's own personal kind of spiritual experiences that we try to create in the wilderness for people, it's also like this community building thing, right?
There are lots of keys you can use to unlock it.
And like we all got to be Goonies for a little bit if we grew up in the 80s. That was an absolute dream to go find, a pirate's chest full of gold.
Now, as you can tell, we're pretty passionate about catfishing. We could keep talking all night long, really.
Let us help you find your key. Welcome to the 12 Hike Podcast.
Open my eyes, and here's this Milky Way, and I'm looking at this, and like it was an instant reaction. Like I went to nudge somebody next to me because I wanted them to see the same thing I was seeing. I wanted to share that with somebody, and it was.
Everybody has that friend, right? You know the guy, the one that he's a lot of fun to be around, but if you hang around him long enough, eventually he's going to get you in trouble. Well, I'm afraid to say I'm that guy. Well, at least for Sean anyway. Sean was crazy enough to agree to go on a kayak trip with me. His first kayak trip. His first time ever in a kayak with me. Now, I was honored. I was very happy that he went, because after I got my kayak, I had worked very hard at converting as many people as I knew into the sport. I loved it. I assumed everyone would love it. Well, with Sean, I wasn't wrong. However, his first trip was eventful, to say the least. It was longer than he thought, it was more dangerous than he thought, and it was more fun than he ever could have thought. On this episode, we're going to talk to Sean about his very first experience in a long chain of experiences on a kayak. It's Sunday, and I am very lucky to have my good friend, Mr. Sean Penix, talking to me today. We're going to be talking about kayaking, something we're both very passionate about and that we've been doing for quite a while now. Sean actually just went on a trip today. So, Sean, why don't you go and tell everybody where you went and what you did?
Well, I got to correct you. It wasn't today. I went yesterday. But that's okay. We took a trip to the local Shawnee Forest here, to one of the lesser-known ponds that is a little less popular because it's not part of the main lakes, part of the main park. It's a little lake called Pond Lick Lake. Myself and my wife and our kids got out. They paddled. Where the kids aren't really comfortable to fish yet. But I did a little bit of fishing from the kayak and a whole lot of getting blown around by the wind. But all in all, it was a good day. It was nice to get out, finally get out of the house, get the lines in the water, get the boats in the water, and just have a good time.
Yeah, that's always a struggle with me whenever I take Leah out. We have different likes and dislikes when it comes to kayaking. I prefer to stay on the water for 6 to 8 hours and fish the entire time. Leah's good with a couple hours floating around and then going home. To me, that's almost a waste. Like, it's not worth loading up the kayak, getting all your stuff out, bringing it back, getting it clean, putting it back up. If I'm going to get the kayaks out, it's going to be all day. But I'm sure with especially your two kids, just getting them into it, that would probably sour them pretty quickly.
I think so. By the end, we were out for about 3.5 hours, and by the end of that time, they were getting pretty done. There were a lot of complaints about numb butts and needing to pee, things like that. So we're working them into it. We're taking our time.
It's funny. My on my Facebook memories today, it popped up. I think it was your very first time in a kayak.
It was. It's actually kind of funny. I saw that this morning after I got out of bed, and I mentioned it to Sarah. I said, it's hard to believe that today makes 6 years since my first time in a kayak, my first time experiencing that period. And funnily enough, that was something that you introduced me to. So it's almost like we've come full circle. You introduced me to kayaking, and now you're introducing me to your podcast. So it's definitely kayaking is an experience in and of itself, and doing this is definitely a new experience. So for right now, you're broadening my horizons.
Well, that's not entirely true. I mean, you do have a Twitch stream, and you stream World Tanks and League of Legends, and I've been watching that for the past couple of days, and that's pretty fun. Seeing you do those kinds of things is really neat to me, because I've never done anything like that.
It's definitely a completely different experience than anything I've ever done before, both in my time as customer service through the several customer service jobs that I've had, and as a gamer. Like, streaming on Twitch just wraps everything together and allows you to connect in a way that 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it was unheard of. Nobody would have ever thought that I could play games for an audience and they would watch and interact and be a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with podcasting. I mean, if you think doing a podcast is relatively new, 10, 12 years, whenever the first people started doing it, the beauty of it is you can go on for as long as you want about whatever you want, and people will connect to it for some reason.
For sure.
Same thing with connecting to kayaking, just like that first trip. If I remember correctly, you caught the only fish, and we were on the water for 8-10 hours.
I did catch the only fish, and I remember it was we were so pumped about going. You had been planning this trip with your kayak friends for quite a while, and I happened to invite a mutual friend at that point, Justin Howard, and he went with us. And it had rained 2 or 3 days beforehand, and the water was up, and it was muddy. And I remember we tried everything. We tried live bait, we tried artificial bait, we tried crankbaits, we tried soft plastics. You were throwing your ever faithful Roadrunner and not changing for love or money. And I remember I tied on a Johnson's Beetle Spin in the black body with white spots selection, and was just at that point throwing it out of desperation, and I caught a 12-inch channel catfish. And that was the only fish we caught, and potentially one of the only bites that we got. It was a grueling day to fish, but a wonderful day to kayak.
Yeah, let's, before we continue any farther, let's back up a minute. Take it easy on my Roadrunner, all right? That thing's a tried and true warrior.
Absolutely no problems with me or from me about the Roadrunner. I just know at times when it may be time to try something else, you stick to your guns. And that's commendable.
Confidence bait, that's what we call that, right?
There you go.
So that long, grueling experience of a day, what about that experience made you say, all right, I thoroughly enjoy kayaking. I have to do this again?
So when I finished up, I remember the place that we launched was this sketchy public access to the Little Scioto River, and you you pulled us up to the drop in, and I remember walking down to the water, and the closest place that we could get, you had to step off of a 3.5 foot ledge onto a stump growing out of the side of the bank and just kind of flop into the kayak to get in. And I remember seeing that, looking down into this muddy water under a bridge, thinking, maybe this isn't for me. I don't know that I'm comfortable doing this. This may be a little much. But then, once I finally got in the kayak, finally got used to balancing in the kayak, rocking and paddling and doing all the things, it was, it's hard to describe without sounding ridiculous. It was a very freeing experience, to be able to be in such close contact with the water and as in control of a watercraft as I was amazing. I do remember partway through the trip, we came to a spot where a tree had fallen in the earlier storms through the year, and it had completely blocked the waterway off. And I thought, oh God, what do we do now? And I remember getting out of the kayak onto this maple log laying across the river, and it was covered in poison oak and poison ivy. And I'm standing there balancing on this 16-inch wide platform and hauling my kayak across and preparing to get back in. And you're telling me, just aim your butt and fall. It'll be fine. Aim your butt and fall. And it's taken me back to the beginning. And I'm thinking, oh my God, is this what I'm doing? Is this really where I want to be right now?
Just as you were getting comfortable, this whole scenario gets thrown in your lap to make you rethink everything.
Yeah, flipped the whole idea on its head, right? But we made it across the tree. And that was great. We stopped for lunch shortly after. If I remember correctly, we had lunch. I think you and some of the other guys that went swimming, and I said, "You guys are crazy. I've seen the gar in this body of water. I am not swimming in there. It's not happening." And at that point, I thought, it's lunchtime. We had been out since 8 or 9 in the morning. You had told me it was a 4 to 6 hour trip. We should be about done. I love this. I could do this all the time. And then we kept paddling.
Yeah.
And kept paddling. And kept paddling. And finally, when we got done, when we got to the end, the water was so shallow that we had to get out of our kayaks and drag them along and fight with them to take them out of the water and up to the area that we had parked to take kayaks out,
Yeah.
And I remember feeling, on the one hand, defeated,